Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and having a great Saturday so far. In today's forecast update, we're going to be talking about the medium to long range, and we'll be discussing what we could potentially expect over the next couple of weeks as we get into further into the second half of February and then finally get into early March. And I do think we'll get into a little bit of a quiet period over the next, I would say at least couple of days to at least a few days from now. We'll be in a more of a quiet period. And then I think as we get towards the end of February, we'll start to get a little bit more active, and then especially as we get into March. But that'll be the main topic for today's video. First, here starting out with the Climate Prediction Center, and we're looking at our temperature outlook for the 6 to 10 day range. And so confidence is pretty high that we'll see above average temperatures, especially into the southwestern US, but as the in the western US as a whole. And then if we look towards the east, the confidence is there just a little bit for below average temperatures for the next 6 to 10 days into the eastern US, and especially towards the kind of Great Lakes region as well. And then if we look at our precipitation outlook here for the 6 to 10 day range, you kind of have just a kind of a mishmash of stuff here. So if you look to the northern sections of the United States, above average precipitation is expected, and then into portions of the northeast and mid-Atlantic, as well as the peninsula of Florida and the south central US. Then as we get into kind of the mid-south and midwest, below average precipitation is expected again for that 6 to 10 day range, and as well for sections of the northwestern US. Then if we look at the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook here, above average precipitation is expected into quite a bit of the eastern US, especially the southern US, even into quite a bit of the central US as well. And then a small section of the northwestern US could potentially see below average precipitation for the 8 to 14 day range. Then finally looking at the temperature outlook here for the 8 to 14 day range, and above average temperatures are expected into the portions of the southwestern US, and then into the northeastern US, as well as the mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, into the Midwest as well, and even into a small section, not really a small section, but a little bit of the southeastern US. First starting out with the GFS, and then we'll move to the European weather model, and then after that we'll move more towards the ensembles just to look at the medium to long range. But again, first looking at the GFS weather model, a lot is not really expected except for some moisture into the northwestern US with some showers and snow showers into the higher elevations there into the northwestern US, as well as some rain into the southeastern US as we get into tomorrow on Sunday and even into early on Monday. And then getting a little bit further here into the run, and then as we go into Tuesday and then even into Wednesday, not a whole lot again is going on here, but we could see maybe a little bit of a weak low pressure move in just into kind of the Great Lakes region and further into maybe portions of the extreme northeast, where we could see some snow in some of these areas. But for the most part, it'll really just be rain, especially as you get into the northeastern US, maybe sometime in the middle or late portion of next week. And then even going further with that, it looks like cold air will probably get pushed down farther to the south when that system finally moves through. And so we'll discuss that a little bit further once we get to the ensembles. But again, the GFS maybe brings another system into the northeastern US, just a quick hitting clipper system maybe next weekend. We'll have to continue to watch that as well. The western US stays quiet for the most part, just with some moisture kind of moving in and some snow into the higher elevations, especially into the Cascades and Rockies. And then looking further to the south, maybe another little push of moisture, not this coming Monday, but next Monday into early March. But that is again just getting pretty far out, and we can't really pinpoint where that low pressure is going to go. But the GFS wants to show a pretty strong system with this, and this will definitely be something we'll have to watch as we get closer to that time frame. And then if we look at the European weather model, we're not going to go as depth into the short range just because we just discussed that on the GFS. But starting out with the 06Z run, then as we get into Sunday, still moisture into the northwestern and southern US, even into Monday. And then finally, as we get into Tuesday night into Wednesday, you have that other system finally moving through. Again, sometime maybe Wednesday into the Great Lakes region. And the European mainly keeps this rain as it gets into the Great Lakes and northeastern US, but with a little bit of a snow band up there in Maine by sometime next week, by Thursday. And that would finally move out by sometime Thursday into Friday. And then again, I think we'll have some cold air with that system that'll reach further to the south. And then finally looking at the 0Z run here for the European, so we can see out a little bit farther. Has that again other system like the GFS shows, but it has that low pressure a little bit farther north into Canada, and has that finally moving out maybe again not this coming Monday but next Monday on March the 3rd. Then again we have that other system showing up here on the European as well. Looks to be pretty strong, and gets that moved in by not this week but this coming week, but next week, early into March. But again, that's just pretty far out where we can't pinpoint any of these small details at this time, so we'll just have to continue to monitor that as we get closer to it. And now finally looking at the GEFS ensembles, and so as you can see, we already have the below average temperatures into quite a bit of the eastern US, especially into the southern US, and those will start to moderate a little bit, and finally by Monday you should start to see those see the below average temperatures finally move out, and you will have mostly above average temperatures return to the continental United States. But then we continue this on midweek, again above average temperatures for much of the United States, getting further as well into late next week. Then finally, again, as I said earlier with that other system, we could have a connection between the polar vortex, where we have some cold air being brought down here into the eastern US and into the southeastern US, with above average temperatures mainly being out here into the central and western US. And then as we get into next weekend, it looks like it moderates just a little bit, and then we could have maybe another quick hitting cold air event into the mid-Atlantic or northeastern US. But after that, it gets a little bit fuzzy with the details, and we'll just have to kind of see how that plays out. But if we go to the 06Z run for the GFS ensembles, it looks like cold air tries to get back into much of the continental United States by early March, but again, just because it is getting a little far out, we cannot say that's going to happen for sure. But I am confident about us seeing at least a cool down again, maybe sometime next weekend. But before that, we'll experience a warm up for quite a bit of the country. Then going back to the EPS ensembles, and we go to the 0Z run just so we can look out a little bit farther. Same thing here. Those below average temperatures finally move out by Monday night into Tuesday potentially. And again, quite warm for the United States here, but we could see some moderation with that again sometime next weekend, with that cold air finally moving down with that other system. And again, that won't last for too long, but I do think we'll have that cool down for sure. And then again, same thing here, shows another cool down after that, like the GFS ensembles. So we'll have to continue to monitor that as well. But it's just getting so far out, it is almost unreliable at that point, even for the EPS ensembles or the ensembles in general, once we get really over 300 hours out. But finally, we'll look at our height anomalies, and this allows us to kind of see what our pattern will look like. And this, with this, I can kind of explain a little bit better what our pattern would look like and how it could impact the United States. So the areas in the red colors are areas of higher pressure. The areas of blue are areas of lower pressure. That is where troughing is. And the red, again, is where ridging is, where you have those kind of spikes here, as you can see, you could call them. And so as we get into midweek next week, you have troughing finally build into the eastern U.S. That is where our connection is going to be, where we can have cold air funnel into the eastern U.S., especially into the northeastern U.S. Then that finally moves out. You have kind of another shot of troughing next weekend, and that'll again probably bring cold air into the northeastern U.S. with mostly above average temperatures to the west. And then as we get into the 3rd and 4th of March, we could see troughing return, and this is again gonna be the main time period we'll have to watch for maybe a potential cold air return for most of the country. Or I won't say most of the country, but more of the country compared to what we've been seeing, if that makes sense. But again, I know I said that 100 times. We're just going to have to wait and get a little bit closer to that before we can really break it down. But ridging is going to dominate much of the western U.S. over the next several days, and troughing will return at some times into the northeastern and even eastern U.S. as we get later next week into next weekend. And then finally looking at the GEFS ensembles here, same thing here, ridging in the west and into the central U.S. As we get into midweek, you have that trough there with our associated system kind of up here, and then that cold air is able to connect and is able to push down to the south, and ridging stays in the west still with above average temperatures there, and shows that other trough, as we get into the 3rd and 4th of March. And then after that as well, looks like troughing tries to build back into the continental United States, and that is the end of the run because it's still loading here. It's still not fully out, but I'm sure it shows a pretty similar setup to what the European ensemble is showing as well. But that'll be about it for the discussion of the medium to long range pattern. We'll just have to continue to watch this and monitor what the ensembles show, and I do think once we get through really this upcoming week, even into this weekend, we'll start to get into a more active pattern, especially as we get into early March. So that'll be it for today's update. I appreciate all y'all watching, and I appreciate all of my returning viewers and people who have continued to watch my forecast updates. I'm going to try to, again, I know I say this a lot, try to get more forecast out as I can, or as I'm able to, but I can't guarantee a specific upload schedule. But I think as we get into this as we get further into this quiet period and get closer to the active period, I'll try to definitely get some more forecast up by then. But again, I appreciate all y'all watching, and I hope y'all have a great weekend.